Hey everybody, Vito Bruno, Boston Winery. Today's February 5th, and the reason the date is relevant, I want to go over wine pairings specific to Valentine's Day. I'm going to start off talking about my general three principles for pairings, and I apply these to all my wine pairings, and then talk about some Valentine's Day pairings. I know a lot of people might not feel comfortable going out to eat, and they might be cooking at home. Bringing a wine pairing into the mix might be a fun way to talk about how that wine complements the food. I know that conversation right now can be tough when you're sitting at home with your significant other almost 24/7. So bringing in a bottle of wine and then talking about what they think about the pairing, if they like the wine better by itself or with the pairing, and vice versa with the food. Do they like the food by itself or do they like it better with the wine? That's all a conversation that I have in my head when I'm pairing. It might be something you can bring to the table, make it a little bit more fun, a little bit more interesting, and give you guys something to talk about. So my three primary wine pairing principles, I use these with all the pairings that I do, are complementary and congruent. So that's one. Is the tasting or pairing complementary or is it congruent? Now, congruent pairing would be something like a buttery popcorn and a buttery Chardonnay. They go together. They just taste similar. You're going to flow right into one and into the other. There's no difference in the palate. When I say that, I mean it's similar in viscosity. If it's a dense meal, it's a dense wine. In flavor is the same. It's very similar. The other, which I think is really fun, is a complementary pairing, and that's something that is completely opposite. The easiest way to think about this in my mind is blue cheese and sweet dessert wine like Moscato. Whenever we do something like a blue cheese pairing, we pair it with our Bricchetto because it's our only sweet dessert varietal that we produce, grown right next to Moscato, very, very similar. Great wine to pair with something with some salinity because it's the complete opposite, right? You're pairing that salty with sweet. It's salt and chocolate is the idea behind the pairing. That is my first pairing principle. The other I briefly touched upon, which was depth. When you're pairing a meal and a wine, you want to make sure that they have similar depth. And when I say depth, I really mean like depth on your palate and how dense that food item is versus the wine. If you have a really dense food item and you pair it with a really light wine, it's going to overpower the wine, and the wine's really not going to add anything to that experience. That's why you see a lot of cabs, right? The stereotypical pairing is Cabernets and steak. Cab is a bigger varietal. Steaks are obviously a denser meal. One doesn't overpower the other necessarily. They can stand up on their own, and they can stand up to each other. The other pairing principle that I really like to use, and this is a little bit more complicated, is considering your alcohol, tannin, and acid level. All of those help play into your pairings. I'm not going to get too deep into that today, but I will say tannins, for those who don't know what tannins are, they're that drying sensation on your palate. So when you have a wine that's tannic, our Barbera is something that's a little bit more tannic. It's a bigger, bolder red varietal, higher in alcohol content, slightly acidic. It's really great to pair with a meal that has a little bit of fat. And I'm not saying go out and get a piece of gristle and chew on that to have to drink this Barbera. You could do something like chocolates. Chocolates are great. For those who don't know why milk and tea pair together, if you drink your black tea and you drink milk, it's the same concept behind wine and chocolates. The fat in the milk and the chocolate coats your palate so that when you drink your tannic wine, it doesn't feel so tannic. Now, again, tannins are that compound that dry out your mouth. They're a natural preservative in red wine. All red wine has tannins. Black tea has tannins. White wine does not have tannins. If you love a red wine and you like something a little bit drier, you love a tannic wine, which means it might pair really well with chocolates. Folks who don't like that drying sensation, if you wanted to try a red wine, I would recommend pairing it well, potentially with chocolate. So whenever I do my pairings, for example, if I was going to dive into this box of chocolates, which I'm really tempted to do, but I won't, I'll bite the chocolate. I'll actually move it around my mouth. It sounds weird, but I do the same thing with wine. I want that chocolate getting all over my palate because different areas of your palate will taste different things. And then I'll sip the wine. Now, granted, I know what this Barbera tastes like, so if you're going to go home and you want to pick up a bottle of wine and you try the wine, what I would then do is take a sip of water, have your meal item, try the wine again. So try the wine by itself, see what you think, have a bite of that meal item, and then try the wine. Remember to move everything throughout your mouth, both the meal when you do eat it, and then the wine after you do take a sip of it. And the reason I say that is, again, you want different areas of your palate to pick up different notes. We have a few pairings that we have for this Valentine's Day, which are both our Barchetto and Barbera with our chocolates and some nuts as well. So these actually, the nuts and the chocolate come from Graham over in Concord. Awesome spot. It's actually our cousin Nikki who owns it. Anyone who's been to the winery that knows Nino, it's Nino's niece. Nikki is awesome. She has the same principles that we do, which is taking in fantastic raw materials and not manipulating them. So when I say that, I mean everything is organic. Nuts are organic, direct from Greece. These are salted almonds. They are fantastic. It sounds weird to say that salted almonds are awesome, but you taste these and you taste a huge difference from the commercialized almonds. And these chocolates are insane, and they're super unique. They're not your run-of-the-mill chocolates. They're craft chocolates. They're awesome, and they pair really well with these wines, but for different reasons. So this Barbera is a complementary pairing where they're a little bit more opposite. The Brachetto is a congruent pairing. So I know in here you have some cherry chocolate. You get a ton of cherry and strawberry notes out of this. That is a congruent pairing where you have some difference in some complementary pairings in the Barbera. We do have these available regardless if you go with this wine, these wines, or these packages here. Just remember those pairing principles when you do sit down and have that Valentine's Day meal, and get a little creative, have some fun. Definitely get some wines to pair with it. It gives you something new to do. Cheers, guys. Happy Valentine's Day.